Hello, Bolt fam, and welcome to another episode of ChargersCast. ChargersCast is a podcast about everything about our beloved Los Angeles, formerly San Diego Chargers. It's a podcast by fans, for fans. So, let's get going. Yeah, there's no way to candy coat it. The loss to the New England Patriots in the Wildcard round sucked horribly. There's no way to get around it. I mean, for any of you diehard, long-term Chargers fans, the struggle is real, okay? The struggle is real. Jim Harbaugh has come in and took a Chargers team that was, I want to say it was 5-12 that last season under Staley, where we absolutely got our asses kicked by Aiden O'Connell and the Raiders that prompted finally Staley's firing. Harbaugh's taken us to 11-6 seasons in a row. And while the first season was miraculous in its own right and definitely refreshing and encouraging, I would say this second season was an even better coaching job due to the level of significant injuries. And when I say significant, injuries to significant role players, the Rashawn Slaters, the Joe Waltz, the Omarion Hamptons in particular, and then Jamari Salyer. They finally get him in at left tackle, and he's struggling. Mekhi Becton struggled all season, not just struggled with his play, but he was struggling with injuries. It was a tough one, but I would say it was probably an even better coaching job. And the reality was, we didn't even try and win in Week 18 against the Broncos. We rested all of our significant starters, and some other starters played, but not the whole game. Like, I believe Keenan, they pulled him and a couple other guys before the end of the game. And so, realistically speaking, we could have been 12-5, and there were a couple losses in there too due to the lack of offensive physicality with our linemen being down. We could have put a couple more wins on the board. We could have had a dominating season if we hadn't taken the significant losses to our O-line that we did, and Omarion Hampton too. I think he would have been much more dominant near the tail end of the season if he hadn't gotten injured earlier on in the season. We had some Deion Henley injuries, and Denzel getting erroneously bullshit suspension for 2 games, and the story goes on. But as I sit here and reflect on this season, that loss was incredibly disappointing. Not that we lost. I think we will all give credit where credit's due to the Patriots. They earned the right to be the second seed, and they've been playing some really good football. But again, I think it's, at least in this particular game, I would say it's 50% they beat us and 50% we beat ourselves. In that first half, they weren't getting... Justin had a pretty damn clean pocket with which to operate, and yet he barely found any receivers. He probably ran. I haven't looked at the statistics, but he probably ran more than he had pass completions in that first half, and not being able to score on the 2 turnovers that we got, and especially on that first one. I know Harbaugh was playing to win. He doesn't go for it very often, but when he does, you'd like to see us get it, and we couldn't get it in from the 2. to put a touchdown on the board. So we come away from that first turnover with 0 points. And a lot of times, maybe 7 out of 10 times, 70% of the time, that gives the opposing team, even though they're pinned deep in their own end, that gives them momentum, which it did in this case for the Patriots, to drive down the opposite way, even though they're pinned in deep. So I don't want to overanalyze this game because it's already the past, and lots of changes are going to be taking place in this offseason. But it was incredibly disappointing. And as Chargers fans who've been Chargers fans for any amount of time, and I don't just mean during the Phillip Rivers era, but going back to many eras, the struggle is real. It is real. I wouldn't go with that whole the chargering thing that people like to go with. I don't think we chargered in this game. We just dramatically underperformed in all aspects, in game plan, in play calling, in execution, all the way across the board. So I really don't want to belabor it, but that first half, I think, doomed us. Not being able to take advantage of the turnovers early doomed us. The defense held up their end of the bargain. This was, you could put it pretty much all on the offense. We got interceptions, we got pressure on Drake May, we got sacks on Drake May. Bottom line, we lost a game that at least we should have put up a better showing. Seriously, 16-3. That's pathetic. And so we will move into the off season, and there's a lot of stuff to talk about as we move into the off season. So we will address that here as well. But I find in my reflection one of the many Harbaugh-isms that he uses may not yet fully apply, and that is the worm has turned. I would say that the worm has not completely turned just yet. The worm may be in the act of turning, but it has not fully turned. So we'll leave the 2025 season with that, and we'll move into the off season and things we can expect, things that are going to be going on. But first, as is tradition here at ChargersCast, and you can probably hear it already. I'm already starting to get parched because I jumped right into it before even cracking open my beverage. But I'd like to have an ice cold beverage here while we are doing the pod. And this week, I chose a Stiegl Hell. I actually came across this. I was in Europe this summer for about 2.5 weeks and traveled multiple places in Europe, but one of the places I was at was Salzburg, Austria. By the way, if you get a chance to go there, absolutely gorgeous, absolutely beautiful. But there is a brewery in Salzburg called Stiegl. They've been around literally for hundreds of years, and they make an incredible beer, and in this case, it's a lager, and it's called Stiegl Hell. It ended up being one of my favorite beers from our trip to Europe. So we'll get this bad boy cracked open, lubricate the vocal cords, and we'll keep rolling. Or you guys can watch me chug this thing, because it is literally that good. All right, I am recording this late afternoon, early evening on Tuesday the 13th. So a couple days have passed since the loss, and I know a lot of folks have, jumped right out after the loss and emotionally addressed the game, gave their opinions on the game. And I think for those of you who follow the podcast, that's not my style. It's pretty rare that I will come out immediately after a game when I'm still emotional, especially losses. It's one thing when we win and you're hyped about the win, but with losses in particular, I like to typically take a step back, and that's usually at least 24 hours, if not 48 or more, and just let it digest and kind of go back to, instead of an emotional response, a more rational response about where the shortcomings were, what needs to be addressed to, improve going forward. So nothing different here. Well, Mr. Harbaugh, and I suspect he had the input of ownership, Dean and John Spanos, more than likely, and I would assume he probably consulted with Joe Ortiz as well, has already made some important changes. And I'm sure you all have heard it, just like I have as soon as it got reported. Greg Roman is out, as is offensive line coach Mike Devlin. I don't think these will be the last coaching changes. Odds are pretty high Jesse Minter's going to get a head coaching job, so we're going to have to address that side of the ball. But I'm talking actual, firings, if you will. It probably won't be the last, but those two make a lot of sense. And if you guys know, you've been here, I've been a G-Row supporter. And I don't like to be one to be emotional and knee-jerk. Roman has a very good resume. He's exceptionally smart, and anybody who says otherwise isn't smart. He's an exceptionally smart individual, and he's got a very good resume, and he and Harbaugh are very, very close. Like I've mentioned on the pod before, I think these two are like stepbrothers, and they literally could complete each other's sentences. Greg Roman is the only offensive coordinator that Jim Harbaugh has had in his entire career as an NFL head coach. He was his offensive coordinator for all 4 seasons in San Francisco, and his offensive coordinator for his 2 seasons here with the Chargers. So I don't think Harbaugh made this decision lightly. In fact, I think it was a very difficult decision for him. But I also believe Harbaugh is all about winning. And at this stage of the game, I think it was appropriate. Okay, we just turned the team around. In 2 seasons, we've had 2 11-6 seasons under Harbaugh and Greg Roman and Jesse Minter and Joe Ortiz. But if we're going to get over the hump, it would appear, based on our performance, that Greg Roman took us as far as we were going to be able to go offensively. Now, could we have had a better season under Greg Roman if Slater and Joe Alt had played every game this season, or the absolute majority of games this season? I believe so. Would that have translated in the playoffs? Don't know. It'll be complete speculation. You'd like to think that those 2 guys would make a big, big difference in a playoff game, but they were available in the Texans game last season, and the Texans absolutely reaped havoc with our interior line by running stunts and games all game and beating the crap out of Justin. So just the 2 tackles weren't going to solve the problem. And while Zion had a average season, he by far was not the worst of our interior O-line. Bozeman and Becton, unfortunately, huge letdown with Becton. They weren't getting it done. So I think the time was right. And I think Harbaugh chose wisely. He didn't wait. He ripped the Band-Aid off. It's an interesting offseason with all the head coach openings. And I would think in every single case where a team is going to hire a new head coach, every single one of those teams is also going to hire a new offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. with maybe one exception here or one exception there. So the market for OCs and DCs is going to be high, to the tune of 7, 8, 9, maybe 10. I think Detroit let their OC go, if I'm not mistaken. So they're going to be hiring somebody. So you're going to have a couple of those teams where they didn't change head coaches, but they're changing coordinators. And so the market's going to be big for those positions. And so the earlier Harbaugh ripped the Band-Aid off and gets into the market, the better. And this is going to be an interesting hire. You know, immediately there's names that come to mind. We can sit and speculate who ultimately will get the job. And I'll go ahead and throw the same names out there that everybody else is throwing out there. We got Brian Daboll, former Giants coach who was former Bills offensive coordinator. And he did a really good job with Josh Allen. We got Mike McDaniel. I am not a McDaniel fan. And maybe I've been tainted by his head coaching tenure. Everybody raves about his offensive schemes. And so, you know, I'll leave that to wiser folks than myself. You're hearing Kingsbury. He was Patrick Mahomes' college coach and then became the Cardinals head coach, got fired from that. Ultimately, he had been the Washington Redskins offensive coordinator this past season. And so I don't know where Kingsbury fits into this. I've heard some people kicking around Pep Hamilton. Pep Hamilton's been around, highly respected. I saw some people refer to him as our offensive coordinator during Justin's rookie season, which actually is not true. I believe that was Shane Steichen. It was actually our offensive coordinator during Justin's rookie season, and Pep Hamilton was the quarterback's coach. But highly respected. I don't know if he would be a good offensive coordinator or not. I know Shane Steichen would, but Shane Steichen was retained by the Colts, so he is not in the cards. I've heard Kevin Stefanski, who he spent some time on the Chargers years past, before he got his head coaching gig, and did some good things for us back in the day. So odds are pretty high he's going to get another head coaching gig, but on the off chance he didn't, I'm sure he would entertain offensive coordinator offers. And by the way, this is a good time to mention, is there going to be another offensive coordinator position in the NFL better than this one? Los Angeles, Justin Herbert, Jim Harbaugh. I think Jim's going to be able to maybe not have 100% pick of the litter, but I think there's going to be a lot of people who, if approached, are going to be very interested in that opportunity. A name to, I don't know, let's call it a dark horse long shot, but Phillip Rivers. Is Phillip Rivers capable of being a full-fledged offensive coordinator? I think he might be. I think he might be, with the knowledge that he has from his, well, technically, I guess, 17 years and, well, let's call it 17 and a quarter years, the 4 games that he had this year, of NFL quarterbacking experience, multiple systems, multiple offensive coordinators, and then understanding what he's been doing as a head coach with his son's high school team, which the NFL is anywhere not anywhere near high school football, or vice versa. High school football isn't anywhere near pro football, but Phillip running a scaled down offense of what Shane Steichen was running with the Colts. I think Phillip could pull that off. Ideally, I would love to see him start out as a quarterbacks coach, where I think he would be crazy effective, and then kind of ease in to an OC position, if that is something he wants to do. But I figured I'd throw that out, considering he made his comeback and he did some interviews and spoke about his desire to coach and thinking he could coach also at the pro level. So you never know. You never know. Stranger things have happened. Jim Harbaugh, ex-NFL quarterback, 14 seasons, has had a lot of success as a head coach. And he pretty much, I don't say he went straight to being a head coach. He actually started out as a quarterback's coach with the Oakland Raiders before he got his head coaching gig at University of San Diego. The nice, beautiful Catholic school up on the hill there, above Mission Valley. But, so we'll keep that one in mind. And then Harbaugh's only 2 years removed from college in the NCAA. I wouldn't be shocked at all with his knowledge of the NCAA, the teams, the coaches, the folks he competed against. I wouldn't be shocked if he has a few wild cards up his sleeve there that he doesn't believe would be able to hop in to the NFL as an OC and put together a very effective, innovative offensive scheme. We've seen it before, and so don't be surprised if he pulls somebody from the college ranks. Here's a couple names I'll just throw out at you. No even knowledge that Harbaugh has a relationship or intimate knowledge of these individuals, but some folks who are well regarded in the offensive ranks. From Notre Dame, the offensive coordinator, Denbrock, and then Garrett Riley from Clemson, also highly, highly regarded. And then we have a few folks in the pro game that aren't OCs that may be ready to become OCs. One in particular, to me, that's intriguing is a guy by the name of Nate Scheelhaas. He is the passing game coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams. So he's already in town. He's familiar with the Sean McVay system, which is kind of in vogue these days. So he would be intriguing. And then from, I know the wound's still fresh, but Thomas Brown from the Patriots, he is their passing game coordinator. He also is from the McVay tree, and then also from Josh McDaniels, who has been in, say what you want about him being a head coach. Clearly that is not his forte, but he is one hell of an offensive coordinator, and he's got the Super Bowl rings to prove it. So a couple names just to contemplate out there, but I think knowing Harbaugh, he's either one of two things. He already has in mind one or two people that are at the top of his list if the time came where he was going to move on from Greg Roman, or he is just the opposite, and he's going to cast a wide net and probably look at both the pros and the college game for his next offensive coordinator. So not much to talk about with Devlin. I think they may just keep that position open. In fact, there will probably be more offensive coaching positions that will change once an offensive coordinator is selected. And so that's probably Harbaugh just knew it was time to move on from Devlin. So he went ahead and pulled that Band-Aid off quick as well. But ultimately, the next head coach is going to, the next offensive coordinator is going to work with the head coach, Jim Harbaugh, and with Joe Ortiz to fill out their staff. And so you may see some turnover with the rest of the staff. That would be to be expected. And at this point, I really don't have much to say about Jesse Minter and his potential departure. All the pundits seem to think it's a foregone conclusion. There are a lot of teams with open head coaching positions. And once John Harbaugh finds his landing place, I think most of these teams are waiting to see where Harbaugh lands, because I think as soon as John Harbaugh was let go by the Ravens, he moved up to everybody's one list, and there isn't anybody else even close. It's John Harbaugh and then anybody after him. So once he picks his landing spot, then we'll start to see the musical chairs start to fill. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we already have our OC in place and they start filling out that position. And then ultimately, the odds are pretty high that we will then be filling out an defensive coordinator position. And depending on who Minter, if he gets a DC or a head coaching gig, how many people he poaches for his team. So we'll have that to deal with. But hopefully, right now, it doesn't look like we're dealing with both of them simultaneously. So hopefully Jim can get an OC locked in, let him go to work before we have to deal with the DC. So we'll see how this evolves. But odds are pretty high. We're going to be looking at both coordinator positions. And, who knows? Maybe there's some promotions from within as well. One of the things, in Harbaugh, we trust that he is going to pull together a brain trust that can take us above where we're already at, take us to that next level. So it's going to be an interesting offseason for sure. And speaking of interesting off seasons, the last couple years in particular under Joe Ortiz, a lot of the signings that he has made have been 1 and 2 year deals. Not too many folks have been signed to long-term deals. Rashawn Slater being an exception to that. But most of these folks, major contributors, they're unrestricted free agents. And so Mr. Ortiz is going to be doing some serious cooking this offseason. And I suspect the first thing he's going to be doing before free agency even becomes official is sitting down with Harbaugh and identifying who he wants to re-sign. And so I'm going to put that list up here. I think it'll be here. Might be here. One of the two places. And we'll go over that list. Top of the list, Keenan Allen. Keenan's an interesting one. I think we can get him at a friendly rate. I think he brings a lot to the receiver room along with his veteran savvy. However, he could be taking playing time away from this year's rookie class, Trey Harris, KLS, whom the new offensive coordinator and Sanjay want to get more playing time and get these young bucks more active in the game plan. So I can see a world where the Chargers move on from Keenan permanently. And so we'll have to see how that plays out. Tight end Taylor Conklin, I was very optimistic for him that he was going to be both a blocker and a catching tight end. He was an exceptional pass receiver in the sense that he rarely dropped a ball when it was thrown to him. He wasn't like a primary target when he was with the Jets, but my goodness, he had great hands. Well, he left those hands in New York when he came to play for us. And his playing time dropped precipitously accordingly, despite the fact that we really needed him. But I think part of it that also factored in is the Scott Matlocks and the Tucker Fisks that took up some of that that role from the blocking side of things. The game plan, the philosophy was bring those big bodies in there, and so I think that limited his playing time. But I don't think we'll see him back. Left tackle Austin Deculus is a free agent. I suspect he, I wouldn't say he's a starter, and I wouldn't say he's an all-pro, but at the right price, I could absolutely see the team re-signing him on another 1 or 2 year deal to have him as a swing tackle or even just a backup left tackle. And so we'll see how that goes. But I could see him coming back on the right contract. Deshaun Hand, defensive tackle, absolutely love to see him back. Was a major contributor in that rotation with rookie Caldwell, and of course our boy Sweet Tier Tart. So love to see Hand come back. I think he was a major contributor, major role player, and on the right contract, I could see him coming back. And maybe not on a 1 year. I could see him coming back maybe on a 2 year. Long snapper Josh Harris, I would be shocked if they don't re-sign him, but he is a free agent. In fact, I'm kind of a little surprised that he is an unrestricted free agent. We saw what happened when he was out and injured, and so I suspect they'll re-sign him unless there's somebody else younger that they have in mind. I suspect they'll re-sign him to a nice contract, anywhere between 2 and 4 years. Najee Harris, I would be shocked if we re-sign Najee. That would have to be a very team-friendly deal. Otherwise, I think we'll just move on from him with Omarion and Kamani Vidal and the next guy on the list, Hassan Haskins. I could see us moving on from Najee Harris. Now, Hassan Haskins, special teams, runs tough, ex-Wolverine, so he's got history with Harbs. I would be surprised if we don't re-sign Hassan Haskins. And of course, he's a role player type of guy, but a guy that Harbaugh trusts. And so I suspect we would see Haskins re-signed. Who's next? Andre James. We just didn't see a whole lot from this guy. He got to play week 18. He played good, but is he the right replacement for Bradley Bozeman? No, not at all. And so the question really is, if we're going to have a backup center, what do we prefer? And that could be financial, that could be skill set. Would we prefer Andre James or would we prefer Bradley Bozeman? But I will be absolutely shocked, floored, flabbergasted, and you pick any other adjective you want, that I would be absolutely beside myself if Bradley Bozeman is the starting center in 2026. Okay. Either through the draft or free agency, we will have another starting center in 2026. So who's going to be that center's backup? Is it Bozeman? which I would be fine with him as a backup. He's got years of experience, familiar with the system. Now, the system's going to change with a new OC, but familiar with coaching and all that. So we'll see how that shakes out. Left guard, Zion Johnson. For a number one pick, Zion hasn't played very well. And then the next thing I was going to say was, well, compared to his interior offensive line peers, he was the best. But that doesn't say a whole lot. If you know what I mean? You're comparing him against guys who are like ranked last or second to last in the league. That's not a fair comparison. But Zion did grade out kind of middle of the road of all the guards in the league. He is a former first-round pick. The guy is scary strong. I think he played, if I'm not mistaken, with the exception of week 18, I think he played every offensive snap this season. And the old saying, availability is the best ability. And so don't be shocked at all if Zion Johnson's our starting left guard next season. And we could do worse than Zion. It's going to have to be a team-friendly deal. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's getting offers from other teams. The question will be, will he want to stay and play for the Chargers? And what kind of offer are we going to make him? Is it going to be competitive with other teams that may be competing for his services? So we'll keep an eye on Zion, but I think the team's going to try and retain him. And so we'll see how that plays out. Trey Lance. I don't necessarily think other teams are going to come calling for him, especially not to be their starting QB. I wouldn't be shocked if we re-sign him on a backup QB deal and have some consistency behind Justin. He showed flashes in the preseason. Didn't show much in week 18, give him that. But in the preseason, he showed some flashes, and wouldn't be shocked at all if we re-sign Trey Lance as our backup QB. Cornerback Dean Leonard, role player, special teams, and can come fill in nicely at DB, cornerback when needed. I suspect we would have Dean Leonard back, but those role players, they usually wait to sign them. They don't sign them right out of the gate a lot of times. And so some other team, like Nick Neiman, right? So some other team could come poach him before the Chargers are willing to make him an offer. Okay, so that could cause us to lose Dean Leonard, but I like Dean. I think he's a reliable role-playing cornerback. Khalil Mack, this is a tough one. And first of all, we're going to have to wait and find out if Khalil wants to come back. He is in that mode again of he's a free agent. He's 33, 34 years old, getting a little long in the tooth. Never won a playoff game in his entire career. Still exceptionally productive, but he really wants to chase a title. Does he feel that he can continue to do that with the Chargers if he decides to come back? So that's going to be a wait and see on that. I don't know. I think that's a coin toss. Number one, it's a coin toss whether he keeps playing, but I think odds are better than 50-50 that he finally, once the dust settles, decides he wants to keep playing. But I think it's probably 50-50 whether he decides to keep playing with the Chargers. That being said, we've got Thule under contract. We'll talk about Odafe here soon. He's just a couple down on our list. And so we'll wait and see. And by the way, Bud Dupree is not on this list, which tells me he's still under contract as well. And, Bud's not the best pass rusher at this stage in his career, but he is able to set the edge and can play against the run. So he's effective in the rotation. So it's going to be real interesting for Khalil. I hope we get him back. His leadership and his production are worth bringing him back on the right contract. Defensive tackle Tito Obonya, I suspect he'll be back. Again, the team's not going to overpay for him. So if some other team in free agency offers him, backs up the Brinks truck and offers him a big fat bag, I could see him being gone. But by the same token, he's an effective contributor. So I could see the team making him an offer, and will he take it? What's the competition for him? Odafe, I hope we sign him after the game against the Pats. He said he really, really enjoyed being a Charger. The camaraderie in the locker room was awesome. The camaraderie in the edge defensive line room was awesome. He felt welcomed from day one, and he has been crazy effective. And he's a good complement to the rest of the guys, especially the Toolies of the world who are less finesse, less bend, and more power. He's longer and got more bend to him. So I suspect we're going to bring Odafe back, but we will see. Trevor Penning, we traded for him late in the season from New Orleans. Offensive lineman. He can play guard and tackle. We didn't get a lot of opportunity to really see him. And, when the offensive line is not shored up, you can have average guys, not across the board, but you can have one or two average guys out of the five when you've got your studs in there. But when your best guy's average, it just highlights the weakness of the entire line. It's like Harbaugh says, they're a fist. And so Penning, I think there's something there. I mean, he's a former first-round pick. I wouldn't be shocked if we made him a team-friendly offer to remain a Charger. Next guy on the list, near and dear to my heart, Denzel Perryman. Our defense is completely different when Denzel's in the game. He is a thumper. He always has been from the day he stepped foot on the field after being drafted. I would love, love, love to see us retain Denzel. We'll see what happens. But you got to suspect he's going to miss a few games due to injury. He's one of the older statesmen on the team at like 33, which is crazy, right? But he's still got game. His leadership and his physicality is exactly what I think this team, regardless of the offensive coordinator, wants, what Harbaugh wants. And so I would not be shocked at all if we retain him on the right deal. I hope we retain him on the right deal. We'll see how it plays out. Edge, Delshon Phillips, more of a special teams guy. If we retain him, he'll be one of those last ones kind of to get signed. Unless they know right out of the gate they can make him a cap-friendly deal and just get him signed and get it out of the way. But odds are they'll wait till the very end, see what they've got left after they sign all the big chunks, all the big contracts, before they see if they're going to retain him or not. This is an interesting one. Trey Pipkin. I would re-sign Trey, and I hope the team would re-sign Trey as a backup. I think he brings enough to the table in a backup role. So a role, somebody goes down for a series, goes down for a snap, goes down for a game or two. He's super versatile, and he's a smart player. It's just he's not the most physically talented. I mean, he's got the size and everything. So, backup role at best, sure as heck should not be a starter in this new offensive line that we're going to have for 2026. But I absolutely think there's value there to retain him as a swing tackle. He can also play the interior. So I wouldn't be shocked if Trey's back. I would be absolutely shocked, and I may trade in my Chargers fan credentials if he was starting without anybody being injured in week one. So we'll see how that goes. Jamari Salyer, it's funny, they've got him listed as guard here because that's where he had played, but he can play left tackle, and quite frankly, of all the backups after Rashawn went down and Alt went down, and I was screaming this on the podcast, and I don't know why it took so long to get him in, but he was the best player to fill that left tackle role once Slater and Alt both were down. And it literally took him till, like week 10 or 11 to finally get him in. He played some really good games and then got hurt, and he was in and out. You know, what's the deal with that? Let's talk about Ben Herbert. Let's not talk about Ben Herbert. That's not on it's not on the agenda for this podcast, but what the hell? Chargers have always been bitten by the injury bug. We bring Ben Herbert in. He's supposed to make our players harder to break, more difficult to break. That's his philosophy. I don't see it. I'm sorry. We're breaking as much as we've ever broken before, maybe even a little bit more. Definitely our offensive line is getting all sorts of banged up and beat up. And maybe that's just because they're not very good and they're getting pushed around by the defense, but something needs to give there. So I'll just leave that there for another podcast. Cornerback Benjamin St-Juste, he actually played okay. I'd retain him on a cap-friendly deal, but based on this list here, I am not seeing the other DB that we brought in free agency, Williams, and he was our best cornerback, actually. And so luckily we've got him, and we've still got Hart and our other young guy. This is what happens when you get old. Tarheeb Steele. So we've got those as a core. And I could see him re-signing St-Juste if he wants to remain a Charger, and they're not going to give him top dollar. So if another team comes and offers him top dollar, he won't be a Charger. And then last but not least, on the unrestricted free agent list, we did not re-sign Poona Ford last season. I hope the reason we didn't sign Poona is because we believed Tier Tart was going to be able to mostly fill that role. And then the other guys in the rotation, along with the rookie, I believe third-round draft choice, if I'm not mistaken, Jamari Caldwell, were going to offset the rest of Poona's production. Well, T.R. Tart had a great season, and I hope that great season doesn't translate into him running off like Poona for the big bag, and he stays here, gets a good bag, hefty bag, but stays here as a bolt, and they sign him to more than a 1-year deal, get him on a 2 or 3 year deal, and keep his production at that defensive tackle position and the rotation. I suspect we're going to see the rookie Caldwell come on more in his second and third seasons. He was very productive. And then if we do keep Deshaun Hand as well and Aboynia, we should be pretty good. So that's it for the unrestricted free agent list. The restricted free agents, Tucker Fisk. We'll keep Tucker I don't see why we wouldn't. I don't think the philosophy, no matter who we bring in as offensive coordinator, is going to all of a sudden become a wide open offense that is more finesse and less physical. I think that will be one of the criterion with which Harbaugh interviews OC candidates, quite frankly, is make sure that there's some simpatico between how Harbaugh is proven to be able to win games, win divisions, win conferences. Not a Super Bowl yet. And so I think there's going to have to be some simpatico there. And I think that's physicality in the trenches. That's where it starts. Future podcasts, we'll chat a little bit about free agents we might bring in, chat about needs in the draft, and kind of see how the team is starting to take shape in the offseason heading into the draft, because you kind of get, 2 rounds of free agency before the draft, and then you get the post-draft, and then you've kind of got roster cut downs after, at the end of training camp before the season starts. So we'll see how that continues to take shape. Right now, these are our free agents. I think there's, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, call it a dozen guys that I could see come back for the right deal. Some more than others. I think we'll be willing to go out, pay more for several of these guys. Other guys, it's going to be kind of, we like to keep you on our terms sort of thing. So we'll see how that takes shape. But first thing in front of us is going to be hiring an offensive coordinator and seeing how the offensive staff takes shape. And probably right around the time that's getting serious, we'll find out whether we get Jesse Minter for another season as our DC. Fingers crossed. We do, because I don't think Jesse's not going to take just any job. And there's a few jobs out there that, let's call them what they are. They're kind of stinkers, if you will. So I don't think he's going to take just any job. So is he going to get an opportunity? Is he going to get an offer from maybe the 3 or 4 head coaching gigs that after John Harbaugh takes his seat, that are still, pretty quality jobs? As far as I'm concerned, if I was in that position, I would not want to take a stinker head coaching job where the cards are stacked against me and it's going to be an uphill battle to try and win games. And 2 seasons later, you've got just a crappy win-loss record, and you might not get a second chance. And if you do get a second chance, probably not for years, for another head coaching gig. So I think it's important for these first-time head coaches, don't just take any gig because they're offering it to you. Take a gig that's a good fit, that you have a realistic shot at being competitive and winning. So we'll see how that unfolds as well. But that's it, Bolt fans. Season's over. We are officially in the off season. I don't know if I'm going to follow the rest of the playoffs, to be honest with you. I mean, I'll, at least from afar, but I don't necessarily think I'm going to sit down and watch the games, even though I think there's still going to be some good games played. But I am going to, as a Chargers fan, as a diehard Chargers fan, I am going to be keeping a close eye on what we are doing relative to our coaching position and our free agents. And we will be here hanging out with you to keep you up to date and give you our 2 cents. So there you have it. One other thing we didn't chat a whole lot about, and don't have a lot to say here other than just about the same time that Harbaugh let Greg Roman and Mike Devlin go, it was announced that Mike Tomlin stepped down. He wasn't fired. He stepped down. He was still under contract. But he stepped down as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who lost last night on Monday Night Football to the Houston Texans. So there's another interesting dynamic because you now have the Pittsburgh Steelers head coaching position vacant. Are they going to fill it from within? Do they already have Tomlin's replacement picked and earmarked? Or are they going to go out and, the friggin' Rooney Rule, they're the masters of the Rooney Rule. It's named after them. So are they going to, go through the interview and hiring cycle like all the other teams that have vacancies? So that throws just between John Harbaugh being let go by the Ravens and Tomlin stepping down, there's just two additional twists and some extra drama this offseason as the coaching carousel turns. So just figured I'd kind of end with that little interesting tidbit as well. But that's it for this episode of Chargers Cast. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me this season, talking Chargers football. Lots of ups, lots of downs. Started out very promising with a 3-0 start in the division, starting out on a Friday night in Brazil as a home game of all things, but sweeping the division first 3 games of the season. And, it was just a roller coaster ride from there. But I think we got our money's worth as far as entertainment value, but we need to stop. I'm glad we've made the postseason 2 years in a row, but we got to stop being one and done. If we're going to make the postseason, we need to be capable and execute getting some wins in the postseason, getting some wins for Justin. There was something I posted today. Justin's in pretty damn good company as far as quarterbacks who lost their first 3 playoff games. It was a small list. It was Peyton Manning, Matthew Stafford, Matt Ryan, and Justin Herbert. Not bad company, and I can promise you at least 2 of those 3 guys are going to be in the Hall of Fame. One of them already is, and Justin has all of the qualities and characteristics to become a Hall of Fame quarterback as well. And all of the tools, Harbaugh just needs to give him the additional support to start winning these playoff games. So that is our goal, fam, going forward, is make the playoffs and start winning some playoff games. So stay tuned. Let's see who our new offensive coordinator is going to be. And that's it for this episode of Chargers Cast. We'll catch you next time. At this stage of the season, we're probably not going to be weekly, every couple weeks as news comes out. But other than that, it's hard to say it right now after just losing in the playoffs. But again, I'll emphasize the arrow's pointing up to 11-6 seasons under Coach Harbaugh. Changes are coming with the intent to improve. Who has got it better than us, Bolt fam? Nobody. Cheers. We'll see you next time on Chargers Cast. Hi, I'm Kirk Brewer, the creator and host of ChargersCast. I just wanted to say thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of ChargersCast. We really appreciate you engaging with the podcast. When I created ChargersCast, it was intended to be a podcast about everything Los Angeles Chargers from a fan perspective. It's by fans and for fans. So it's for you, and we really appreciate you being here. If you haven't done so already, please go down below, leave a comment, give us some feedback. We really love to hear from you. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe and click the little bell so that you get notifications when new content drops. Again, thank you so much for tuning in to Chargers Cast. And who's got it better than us?
Nobody.